Hey guys, Tyler with Meeple Mountain here, bringing you another board game review. This time we're going to be looking at an empire building game for 1 to 4 players. It's coming to Kickstarter soon, Emporio. This is going to be a game that sets you and several opponents, or you can play solo, against each other as you try to prove that you have what it takes to be the ruler of the kingdom. To do that, you're going to need to collect diamonds. Diamonds are kind of the merits that showcase the talents and the abilities that you have as a ruler. And there are lots of paths to victory. You can choose conflict and conquest, building armies, maneuvering them around the map, trying to take over a key position in the middle of the map and kind of generate resources, attack your opponents, destroy their buildings, that type of thing, a military might structure. You can also choose a more peaceful approach, building up your kingdom to its full and lavish extent, collecting resources and building connections with fellow, we'll call them smugglers, that generate resources and help move your empire and your mercantile greatness to the next heights. There are lots of paths you can do. There's also tactical cards that will allow you to generate some unique opportunities to score. All of this is packed into a fun little experience where you will be choosing simple actions every turn and following some general turn flow. The depth in the strategy comes through how you want to chart your path to victory. So let's get to the table and learn how to play Emporio. Welcome to the world of Emporio, which is a kingdom building game for 1 to 4 players. Here we have the classic red versus blue setup, showcasing just a 2-player variant of the title. This is the starting setup, but the effective goal of Emporio is, as a leader of your particular region or land of the kingdom, you want to be crowned the ruler of the entirety of the kingdom set out before you. And to do that, the tradition has always been to prove your worth against other leaders. So these different lords, we'll say, of these regions are competing to be the next full king or emperor of this land. To do that, you need to collect 12 diamonds, Dragon Ball style. You've got to collect the most, and if you collect all 12, it showcases your military, logistical, and diplomatic skills and your merits as being a leader. So diamonds are everything, and you do start with a few of them to kind of kick things off. There can be some costs or things that need to be done that can kind of get you started here with your diamond empire. And there are lots of ways to collect diamonds. You'll see that this is a bit of a area control, almost a skirmish style game where you'll be moving troops around the board, manipulating some military tactics. You will be building different structures along with your capital. There will be your marketplace and several military centers that can help you produce more troops and varied, more improved types of troops, from your foot soldiers, which are here on the ground, to archers, cavalry, and even siege catapults that will all aid you in your conquest and defeat of your opponents. There are resources, many different types of resources in the game. There are 6: food, silver, gold, stone, water, and wood, all of which will be required to build the various buildings, units, and items in play. There are smugglers available that effectively showcase your connections to the mercantile market, increasing the resources that you'll gain, and if you collect enough of them, giving you diamonds as well. There are additional bonuses you can claim by being the first to have 3 troops occupying the middle area of the board, as well as the first to build all of the previously mentioned buildings out onto the map. There are tactics cards which range and vary in their effects and abilities, but oftentimes diamonds can be found in there as well. There are lots of ways to, again, gain these diamonds that you'll be building. You can choose a path to peace by building your units and trying to kind of have this beautiful functioning empire through, mercantile means or what have you. You can also choose direct conflict, because every time you win battle, you will advance your battle track, and after winning 6 battles, you will gain a diamond in that way as well. So this is very much a sandbox. I don't want to directly compare this to Western Legends, but it has that feel, that pick your poison, choose your adventure style game. Now, the beauty of Emporio that I really enjoyed is there is a wonderful game key that's very clear to read and understand, that kind of breaks down a lot of the things that you can do and will do on your turn and the goals, as well as the actions that you can take. There are 3 actions that you can choose on your turn, and they're laid out for you on your player board, that are quick and clean and walk you through how to take your turns and gain the various items that you would need. And on your turn, you'll make a choice. And the game will continue turn after turn, round after round, until someone has claimed 12 diamonds, at which point the game will end with them as the victor. But let's take a closer look at a player board, talk a little bit about the resources and the actions you can choose on your turn, and then we'll zoom back out and take a look at tactics cards and talk about combat on the board. Here we have a nice and zoomed in view of the starting setup for the red player here. You'll notice you have one of each of the 6 resources at the start of the game. You have your 3 diamonds there, your buildings, 1 market, 4 of your military centers, and your troops, which vary in type and quantity. Now, at the start of the game, you can build builders and you can build soldiers. To unlock additional troops, you will need additional military centers. To actually create more soldiers, you'll need your first military center built. The archer will be on your second military, cavalry, and then siege engines. So building your military out by building those centers is very key if you want to have more options available for military conquest. Now, on your turn, as I mentioned, you're going to do one of 3 actions. You can choose to hustle, which was a common action back in medieval times, conquer, or prosper. And those will let you kind of run through a litany of different actions that you can do. Conquer is relatively simple. It is going to allow you to move your troops up to their movement value on the board. So it is a kind of a board-based action. You'll be able to attack within the range of your proposed troops, and then any troops that you have that have been wounded, that haven't died, will heal. So we'll look at kind of how conquering works when we go back out to the main board. The 2 that we really want to talk about today right now are hustle and prosper. And those are going to be actions that allow you to generate more of these various resources, as well as potentially, if you choose prosper, build your buildings and produce your troops to kind of build again and bolster your forces on the main board. So let's start with hustle. To hustle, if you have built your market, you can activate your tactics cards. Tactics cards are various little cards like this that will be either single-use cards that are used once per game and are gone and have a cost, of course, associated with them, or things that will have an active effect, which will allow you to permanently increase and kind of build some asymmetry into your faction. Then you can generate your resources. Generating resources is quite fun in this game. There are 2 dice. You will roll those dice, and simply put, you will, that was a 5, you will gain the number of the various types shown. So for instance, you'll gain 5 of number 3, so I would gain 5 gold, and then I would gain 3 of number 5, so I would gain 3 water. You would gain those resources, add them to your pool of available resources to spend, and that's it. If you ever rolled doubles, you can gain 12 of the shown resources. So I could gain 12 water, which would be a ton of water, or again, if I've built my marketplace, I have some additional options available to me. I could choose to gain 6 water and a tactics card, which could go into my hand of tactics card for use later, or I could gain just 2 tactics cards. So there's always something to be gained, but that versatility bolsters when you build your marketplace, which you would do in a prosper action. So next, after you've generated your resources, you can make trades. Trades is effectively stating you can exchange resources at a rate of 6 to 1 for a different resource. So I could spend 6 gold to get 1 stone. Not a very good exchange rate, but it could be necessary. You can, if you have your market, drop that down to a 4 to 1 ratio, which is better, certainly better, and it's laid out for you here in the bank trade section. Then you will get your tactics cards. You would be able to get some tactics cards if you have your marketplace built. That can always be helpful. And then finally, you can hire smugglers. You, to hire smugglers, would need to pay 6 of the resource matching that particular smuggler to gain them. So let's say I had 6 food I wanted to spend. I could gain the food smuggler. He would sit in front of me somewhere in my player area and would demonstrate that I then double any additional food I gain as long as I have that smuggler for the rest of the game. The nice thing is when I pay that, I will actually put that on top of the smuggler to showcase that I have bribed them. I've paid them 6 food to be my kind of food smuggler for the game. Now, there's a smuggler for every type of resource. If you have 3 or more smugglers, so if you have 3 smugglers, for every 3 you have, you will gain a temporary diamond. So this would be my diamond. If I had all 6 smugglers, I would get an additional diamond. So I'd have 2 diamonds. You can gain 2 diamonds through use of smugglers. The thing is, smugglers are not permanent. If someone else took a hustle turn, they could choose to outbid me for this smuggler's services because, of course, they're good capitalists. They're going to go where the money is. So if I was, for say, an instance here, I was blue and blue had paid 7 food, they would pay that to the smuggler. So this 6 would go away. They'd pay 7 on here. This smuggler would leave and would go to live with the blue player, which could effectively, 1, cost me the food doubling that I would gain from having the smuggler, but it also could cost me the diamond that I'd gain, and it would go away. And if he had 3 smugglers, it would go to him instead. And so this is kind of a variable little tug-of-war king of the hill element of the game where you will be fighting over these smugglers to gain the temporary diamonds that you may need to lock in a victory. And that's the hustle action. It is predominantly about gaining tactics cards and gaining resources that you will need to build your buildings and your troops. That is done through the prosper action, which again allows you to make trades. Then you can move your builders. You can have up to 3 of these little guys. You start with 1 on the board, and these little guys, I named them Bob. They will be able to move and then build in their area. Now, they can't really quite, attack quite as well as some of the others. They can try. They do a little bit, but they'll be your predominant force for building new buildings. So when you move your builders, you can choose to construct buildings that are around, anywhere around, orthogonally adjacent to, actually just adjacent to, excuse me, your builder. So that would allow you to build your military centers or your market. The cost for those are shown here on your player board. So you'll see that you have to pay a various amount of resources, in this case 2 food, 2 silver, 2 water, and 2 wood to build your military center. Doing so will also grant you a diamond. So you can gain a lot of diamonds just by building out your various centers on the board. Then you can produce troops. So the nice thing is you can actually produce troops from, say, the military center you just built. Everything has to be deployed from a particular place. Builders have to come from your capital, which is already on the board at the start of the game, and their cost is shown above or right below their name, kind of on their little section. Soldiers and the rest would be produced from your military centers as you have those unlocked. So if I built my first military center, I could now finally deploy around my military center soldiers, and that would be the way that I would be able to get out a soldier per military center per prosper action that I take. Then you would heal any troops again. If you had troops that were damaged or wounded, you would be able to heal those troops in turn. And those are the main actions that you would take. The last one, of course, is conquer. So the troops that I've put out on the board, I would be able to move them, attack in this yellow grid around the particular troop, as I mentioned, and heal your troops. But it'll be easier to showcase that from the main board. So let's transition over there and take a look at the main board. All right, let's return to the main board and talk a little bit about the map building, movement, and kind of the actions that happen here, because this is, of course, the real meat of Emporio. So on the board, again, you'll notice we kind of have these grid-like patterns and this main section here in the middle that will be fought over. That is going to be kind of a king of the hill section where the first player to put 3 troops or more in that section will gain the shield and will gain a temporary diamond from doing so. If another player comes in with more troops than you or ever has more troops than you in there, you would lose that shield and that diamond to them. In case of a tie, no one gains anything. Now, on the board, again, we have lots of different types of troops. We have buildings that can be built, all these things. When building a building, it has to fit in the number of spaces shown on the building, 2 for a market, 1 for a military center. These buildings can never be built adjacent to each other, so you have to spread them out and give room to move around those items. When you build military centers, they are the places that you will produce troops. 1 military center will allow you to produce soldiers, the 2nd archers, the 3rd knights, or cavalry as I call them, and the 4th your siege engines. Those units are produced from your centers, and every section of the board can hold either up to 4 little dudes, so 4 troops, for instance, if I wanted to produce enough, could pay the cost. 4 of these guys can share the same area, and they can move independently, but they can sit in the same area like so, or it can hold 2 knights like so, or a siege engine. So knights and siege engines count as 2 in those spaces, kind of logically filling those spaces up. So that's how you would produce your troops. Now, when you take the conquer action, you are going to move and you are going to attack with your troops. And that's going to utilize the dice again, just like the hustle action and the prosper or the hustle action that allows you to generate resources. So let's say I'm the blue player here and I want to move my troops. So I'm going to roll. And I'm going to be looking at the white dice for movement and the red dice for attack points. Now, there are ways to get modifiers to your dice rolls. If you have 3 military centers out on the board, you get to double the dice rolls that you see. And if you get your 4th one out, you will actually get to triple it. So you can get much more than shown here. But let's say I just had kind of my base settings here for just a second. I would have 3 movement points that I can use on any of my troops. It could be the same troop. It could be split between the troops, whatever I want. And I can move those units based on their move abilities. Now, archers, builders, and soldiers all move just orthogonal. So I could go 1, 2, 3, something like that. I could go 1, 2, 3. Whatever I want to do, I can split those up. That's my movement points. Now, knights, they can move omnidirectionally, so they can move diagonal. So my knight could go 1, 2, 3 and kind of zip around the board. They're, of course, very mobile, much stronger. They're kind of your pro unit there. Siege engines, on the other hand, actually can only move in front of them. So, of course, as you'd imagine, siege engines are slow, so they could move like so. They would need to spend a point to actually turn the direction of the siege engine position to then move a different direction. So they're not agile and easy to move, and their attack pattern, of course, is only directly in front of where they're attacking in a 3-lane row. So they are slow. You will want to position them and protect them so that you can use them to deal massive damage out to buildings, of course, specifically as you would imagine siege engines would be used for. Next, once you've positioned your troops in a way that you can attack something in your hitbox range, which is always indicated by a yellow box around your creature, your unit. So for instance, my soldiers can attack all around them, so I could be over here and still be applicable to attack. But once you're in range to attack, you would then look at your attack points. Now, your troops have hearts for their toughness or their health, and a fist, which shows how many attack points they can allocate to attack a single unit in a turn. So for instance, my soldier has a single attack of 2. So I could allocate 2 attack points to this little unit here. Now, that unfortunately is not enough to defeat a builder. A builder has 3 health. So that would actually just knock him over, where he could be healed in a future turn by the red player, choosing the Conquer or the Prosper actions. He could just heal that guy right back up and fill him back to full. Now, say I had multiple troops that were in that space or in other spaces, I could use more of my attack points from another troop. So I could use 2 from this soldier and 2 from this soldier, 1 from this soldier, to defeat this builder and remove them from the board. Every time you defeat a unit, you'll move up your victory point tracker on the top right-hand side, or your military success tracker. And for every 6 little troops, so builders, archers, and soldiers you defeat, you'll get a diamond. If you defeat a siege engine or you defeat a knight, cavalry, you will get 2 points on that track. So every kind of 6 points worth of stuff you defeat will get you a diamond. So of course, military conquest can be a very lucrative strategy in Emporio. As I mentioned before, troops can only ever attack one thing within their attack range. So even if I had, 6 enemies around blue that I could attack with one guy, I can't just keep allocating. They can only attack up to their strength, whatever their fist amount is. So you can see there's reasons to have definitely multiple troops and be able to kind of outflank and encircle your opponent so that you have lots of options to deal the damage you need to get them off of the board. A lot of times troops will just kind of end up getting tipped and come back, and that can be very tedious. So you want to make sure that you have the military centers out quick so that you can get your dice values up high to get your troops out and be able to defeat your opponent. Those are the main sections of moving around the board and controlling this center area that are kind of wrapped into Conquer. And if you are the one taking the Conquer action, when your turn is done, you will be able to heal any of your units that are damaged. Because when you attack an opponent, they actually also are able to roll the red die and see how many attack points they have that they could then allocate back to the unit that attacked them. So if I was to attack, and I'm the blue player and I had those 4 points, if I was to attack red here, red can also attack back. And in this case, he has enough points to attack me back and remove one of my troops. So we could end up netting out, killing each other in that regard. So you have to be careful about the counterattacks that come up. The last thing that can happen is, if you want to, you can attack a building of an opponent's and you can damage them. And you'll add little damage markers to track how many wounds you've put onto a building. And when you get to the end of a particular building, you will blow that building up and you will claim the diamonds that building is worth. A capital building being worth 3 diamonds, a market being worth 2, and a military center being worth 1. And so that's kind of another thing that you can choose to attack. And that's, of course, another great way to make diamonds to move yourself towards victory. And the moment that you get those 12 diamonds, you win. The game ends instantly. So that can be a very lucrative way at the end of the game to kind of sneak over and try to take someone's capital building out to claim 3 diamonds just in that one action. And like I said, that's the game. You will be moving around the board, taking turns, maneuvering, building, trying to claim all of the various ways you can collect diamonds, which again are having 3 smugglers. So if you claim 3 smugglers, that is a diamond. If you have the 3 troops or more in the middle, that is a diamond. And if you are the first person to build all of your buildings, that is a permanent diamond that can't get taken away from you. So there are lots of various ways to craft and create the diamonds that you'll need in Emporio. And the choice really is up to you on how you want to seek them out. Here we have an example of the various tactics cards, which are the last kind of element of the game. These can be played by you when you take the hustle action. The cards are generally broken into 2 types. There are progress cards, which are beneficial and affect you, and oppression cards, which are negative and affect a player of your choice. So you play these onto other people. Those types of cards are broken down into 2 types, active and single-use cards. Obviously, single-use cards are one-time use. When you use them, they go away into the discard, and they do a thing for you or for against your opponent. The active cards would sit in front of you and will do some kind of passive effect. You can see there are all kinds of effects that are in here: stealing cards, retrieving cards from the discard pile, costing your opponent's smugglers or production resources or troops even on the ground, which it can be huge. One of the powerful things that's in the deck of tactics cards are cards that can count as diamonds. There are active cards, which the wording here is interesting. I wanted to flag that. These do seem to be the exact same card for all intents and purposes, but use different wording. But these can be active cards that you pay and set in front of you and count as a diamond until or unless they are discarded or removed. So a player could steal this from you or discard this card, and you would lose that kind of temporary diamond. This is a one-time thing where you pay the resources shown, and you actually get a physical diamond token that would be kept and cannot be taken away. So there's some powerful ways to gain diamonds in the tactics cards as well, but this is really the kind of take that element of the game that is a little bit swingy, where these can go in your favor or go strongly against you depending on how often you get these cards. So you can see why getting your market and being able to roll doubles on the dice and choosing tactics cards might be a very valuable choice, because tactics cards can be very, very helpful depending on which ones you get and what your play style and strategy is. And that is everything that you need to know to jump in and have a really good time with Emporio. I'm so glad we got to review a copy of this. I want to thank the designer for letting us have an advanced look before this comes to Kickstarter, and I'm excited to share it with you. So I hope that this was informative about what to expect that's in the box, how to play, and so you kind of know and are prepared for what you're looking at when this comes out into market, and you know kind of how to jump in and have a good time with it. Comments on this, general comments: the rulebook, super clean, detailed. I had no questions. Things were really well laid out as far as movement, combat, how things work. So good job, kudos on the rulebook. But let's kind of jump into my opinions as far as pros and cons. So let's start with cons, and we'll kind of work back. So cons on this. This is what I would call a mid-weight strategy game, but there are luck-based elements that are just somewhat non-mitigatable, right? Dice rolling for the resources you need and for your movement and combat. It's all dice-driven. Now, you can up the amounts as far as combat with your military centers. You can kind of offset some things, but generally, you could be screwed if you just can't roll the resources you need because the exchange rate is bad. And again, you can mitigate that with markets, but there is some luck that you need to know going in. Even your best laid plans can get foiled by luck. Speaking of luck, tactics cards, they're swingy. Just like Andromeda's Edge, Dwellings of Eldervale to Dune Imperium, combat cards, cards that give you powers and abilities that are wide-ranged and varied, just can be swingy. That doesn't mean that it's a bad game. It doesn't mean that it's bad design even. It just means that it's swingy. And you need to know as a gamer going in, like, I could have the best laid plans for victory, and my buddy also has, a close game, and he pulls a card that gives him a victory point, a diamond, and he just plays it, and the game's over, and you have to be okay with that. And that's okay. It's just something you need to know going in. From an aesthetic perspective, the coin choiceage, having so much coinage for 6 resources was strange to me. I was expecting, I'm in this mindset for myself as a gamer, of resources being physical, monikers of what I'm getting, or sliders, ticker trackers, that kind of things for a game. So having so much coinage for so many different resources hit a little different, but again, it wasn't bad. And you're gaining and spending them so quickly, it doesn't really matter. It's just my opinion. I will say, as another thought on aesthetics, the map, you may have noticed there's a lot of browns, tan, brown, dark brown used in this game. It's for that medieval feel, that map feel. I get it from an artistic decision point, but functionally, I would say the map does not pop a lot, and the grid structure of the map is a little vague to pick out and know where your stuff is at. The color pop really comes from your troops on the board, which is a decision. Again, I get it. Just my opinion. I think the map looks, the baseboard map looks a little dull. Positives. Love the smugglers. This is such a fun part of the game. Fighting over the smugglers, having this bidding war, this almost auction structure of getting the smugglers, which are so essential to your economy and your in-game points, was really fun. Trying to outbid people, get resources, steal them from people when they needed them. That was really gratifying and fun for the table. I do think this game plays better at 4, just having the maximum amount of impact, but that probably is my biggest critique or thing to say. I know that I said it, the game says it, that this is a game where you can choose your path, and combat is just one of those paths. I would say that combat is everybody's path. You can just choose how much to dabble into it, especially at a 4-player game. You're going to be fighting people. If you don't fight people, they're going to come blow up your buildings and take advantage of you, because combat is a big part of this game. Yes, you can get a lot of diamonds through other things, through smugglers, through building your buildings. There's all kinds of options, but you do have to fight. So just again, as a gamer, know going in, like, you are going to have to fight. So if you and your group, or you and your group, do not like combat, do not like that take that killing kind of vibe of a game, this is not a workaround game for that. You will still have to do combat. You will still have to fight. Now, you can choose how much you want to fight and how much you want to negotiate, but combat will be a flavor of this game for sure. So just things to keep in mind as you go. But I really enjoyed this title. I'm excited to see the final finished product when it comes out to kind of to the market as a whole, but I really enjoyed this. It has fun, engaging components, fun, chunky wood bits for all of your buildings, and it's just a neat, nice mid-weight game to set down to the table and play if you want to chuck some dice and grab some resources and just kind of have this medieval mashup of this kind of dudes on a map game with some resource auctioning control. And it's a fun little pseudo-Civ style game where you're building your resources and moving your troops. So I really enjoyed it. I hope that you guys will have a good time with it as well, but I hope that this video, most importantly, was informative to you, that you know a little bit more about the game, what's in the box, how to play, and how to enjoy it. Thank you for coming to Meeple Mountain for all of our content. I hope that you'll continue to do so. If you have any questions or anything you want to see reviewed next, give us a shout out and let us know. But as always, I want to thank you guys for checking out this video and wish you happy gaming.
Thanks for checking out this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Check out these links to find some other games you might want to bring to the table. This is Tyler Williams, signing off.